Welcome to MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers. Each week, I talk with industry leaders on both marketing and entrepreneurship and business to find out all about their wins and failures in marketing right now. We'll hear all about successes and wins and what's fallen flat so that you can take that knowledge and implement it. Learn from the best, from the folks who've been there and done it all, as well as people just like you. Thanks for joining us. This is MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers.
From tutoring at 16 to running a global education business, Seyam Hamed breaks down how he carved out a niche, ditched uni to go all in, and what small businesses can learn from his journey. Seyam Hamed is the co-founder of Faiza and Seyam's Tutoring Limited, an online tutoring service that helps British expat and domestic students excel in English and maths and science. Born and raised in London, Seyam's journey into education began with 8 years of tutoring experience before he and his sister launched their business. With first-hand knowledge of the challenges students face when transitioning between curriculums, Seyam has built a tutoring service that goes beyond academics. It provides structure, confidence and continuity for young learners. And though he studied physics at Durham University, he left in his third year to focus on growing the business, which he now serves students across 5 continents. Seyam, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. You sound like you know me better than me based on that intro.
That is the goal. That is the goal, because ultimately the journey that people have been on is fantastically inspiring. It's quite humbling, some of the guests that we've had on and the journeys that we've been on, regardless whether, like one of our guests was a rock star in Russia before he became an executive coach in the US. We've had Hollywood producers. We've had all sorts of phenomenal people, but their celebrity status isn't as important as the journey that they've been on. And that for me is really crucial. And it's fantastic to have a young entrepreneur on the show. You're probably the third young entrepreneur we've had on the show, and somebody that's really caught my attention as we've been talking. So looking forward to digging in deep into the choices that you made. But to rewind back to the beginning of things, you started tutoring at just 16 and then turned it into a full-fledged business with your sister. What was the moment when you realised it could be something more than just a side hustle?
Yeah, exactly. So that one's quite a big question. It's really important. And I've spent a bit of time thinking about it a lot lately. But in terms of the origin, I'd say it's quite humble in terms of beginnings. We initially started off with like the goal of being in person. So working in a local library, hiring like a small little classroom, if you want to call it. Nothing global, no expats, nothing like that. And I think the turning point for us was when we were handing out leaflets. So, very traditional style of marketing. Obviously, we didn't know that the internet existed, 2023. But yeah, so we handed out some leaflets at some schools. And that process, of speaking to all of those parents was quite big, quite intense for us. Very new, putting ourselves out there. And then a few days after, the weeks after actually, we got a couple phone calls. And I think that process of, giving an input and then receiving an output, we realized, okay, we can bend the rules or we can make the rules how we like. So it was a complete independence to control the output and sort of what we wanted to do. That's what I would say.
It's amazing. I just think back to when I was at university, and stepping out of university and becoming an entrepreneur wasn't something that most people even considered. And we've all heard stories of the likes of Zuckerberg and co who, I did a year and then dropped out, and, right place, right time, extremely successful, no doubt. What was the reaction at home when you decided in your third year at physics to drop out and become a tutor? I can't imagine that was an easy conversation.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, I have both Asian parents, so, they're very strict, very much focused on the traditional path in terms of career, in terms of education, that sort of thing. But in terms of the reaction, I think it took quite a fair few conversations with my parents to kind of give them the confidence that actually, we're very much in control of the output and very much in control of like the goals that we have. So yeah, my parents were definitely a bit iffy about it. But, very supportive nonetheless. It wasn't argumentative. It was more like, are you sure about this? You're quite young. The world out there is very scary, very competitive. So, my parents, they supported both of us.
So, third year of physics before you dropped out to go and tutor. I mean, I know that science is a big part of what you enjoy tutoring as well. I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you realised that the professional degree that you were taking took you away from what it was you actually wanted to do, as opposed to bringing you closer, right?
Funnily enough, a lot of people who complete a degree in physics, they either go into consulting or they go into finance. So those skills that, you gain as a physicist are kind of quite transferable in those particular fields. But for me, I couldn't work in an office. I couldn't travel on the tube into central London from the suburbs of, East London and whatnot. I just couldn't do that. I think for me personally, I need to enjoy what I'm doing. And I think there's very few people who inherently believe that to the point where they just refuse going through that, path. They kind of end up sucking it up. They might pick up some bad habits in order to kind of get through those tough times. And for me, I really wanted to prioritize things like health. That was very important to me. I really wanted to focus on my mental well-being and also just being able to have the time and energy to exercise, have a good diet, that sort of thing. And I think those things are really hard to maintain when you have a job that it just kind of sucks your energy and sucks your soul. So, no disrespect to anybody who's in consulting or finance or any of those kinds of fields. But for me personally, I really have to enjoy what it is that I'm doing and, to get into that flow state.
Do you think that COVID impacted on your viewpoint into starting your own business and made you realise that there was more important things than work, perhaps?
Well, I'd say COVID taught me a lot about, starting an online business and the power of being able to run a business online. So COVID was actually probably the first kind of point to which online tutoring became quite big. Nobody was going to school, nobody was taking classes. So we were everybody was figuring out, what is the best way to deliver actual class lessons. So I think everybody was kind of forced to figure this out. And, a lot of schools, especially state schools at the time, were really lagging behind. They would have about 60, 70, 80 students on one call. And actually my brother, he was in year 8 or year 7, I think, at the time of COVID. And I was actually looking at the class and the work that he was doing. I saw the attendees. It was literally 50, 60 students, no cameras, no face. And the teacher, we just kind of going over some like very basic math stuff. It was like fractions. And so clearly it wasn't, adapted for his style of learning or adapted to his level. I think he was way beyond fractions at that time. So a lot of schools lagged. I think tutoring businesses kind of liked the idea of, doing online lessons. It's very convenient for both the parents and the tutor. And, it's quite minimal in terms of costs for a business, as opposed to having a brick and mortar classroom kind of thing. So, yeah, I'd say it's quite a good opportunity, COVID, that came from it, despite all of the chaos during COVID.
You specialise in British expat students. What's the journey why did you specialise in expat students?
Yeah, so expat students wasn't really our goal. We didn't know any expats. We didn't do any outreach to any expat families. Again, it was kind of one of the lucky things that kind of happened to us, and we kind of seized that opportunity. We have a neighbour back home in London, and so they have a family member who was somewhere in the Middle East, and they had a son who was moving from Baku to British boarding school. And so they basically wanted, someone to help him transition from that curriculum, the Azerbaijan maths curriculum that they were doing, to the curriculum, in the British schools. So, I worked personally with this student for about 7-8 months myself. And one of the things that I really liked about it was kind of like the aha moment was I got to tutor quite early with him. So I was in the UK, he was 4 hours ahead of me, and I was able to do lessons quite early as opposed to in the evening, which is when, most students in the UK had their tutoring lessons. So I was like, okay, hang on. It's really convenient for me to do these lessons quite early. And actually, there's plenty of students, British students, who are living abroad, who would like to have a connection with a British tutor. So, adding one and one here, it made sense to kind of go towards expat market or the expat student market. It's really convenient if you're a tutor in the UK to tutor somebody further east. So I think that was my aha moment. And in particular with that student, We got lots of referrals, lots and lots of referrals. And then those families referred lots of people. And very quickly we expanded to all of those different countries across the world. So it was luck. I really believe it was luck, but also, you know, with luck, you have to kind of take the opportunity. You have to recognize the opportunity and make sense of it. It's not just, you know, luck is what it is. You've got to take action. You've got to do the moves, if that makes sense.
When the door opens, you've got to walk through it. I agree completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you took it one step further and became an expat yourself, right?
I have certain reservations about life in the UK. I won't go into too much detail as to, you know, how I feel about it. But for me personally, it was quite important for me to leave the UK and kind of live abroad and, you know, live outside in a foreign country, foreign culture, that sort of thing. And my first kind of step into that was when I had an internship in consulting as well in Vietnam. And for me, I loved living there. I absolutely loved living in Vietnam. I think the most important thing for me was the cost of living. You know, when you're earning in pounds and you're living abroad, it's really good. It's a really powerful way to kind of leverage your money. But also, as well as that, I really liked the culture. That was really important to me. I really loved going outside and leaving my room. When I was in London, in the UK, I'll be honest, I didn't really leave my room as much because I think especially in London, when you step out, you probably have spent a tenner on the tube for a coffee and whatever, for breathing. So, you know, I really loved going out in Vietnam and just kind of figuring it out and exploring the people around me and the area around me. So, yeah, I became an expat. And so, you know, I still am an expat. I probably will be for a bit more time. But yeah,
I think it's beautiful because you identified something that many of us just don't, even into mid to late age, don't really identify in ourselves, in that you can build a life that you want by creating a work that works with that. And so a lot of people have to do anything other than go and get the traditional corporate jobs and then spend most of their life complaining that they don't have time to spend with their kids, or they don't have the opportunity to go out and be with their friends or be flexible or experience foreign cultures. And you've created something for yourself that is a good solid income, because let's be honest, regardless of, as we said before the call, regardless of what's going on in the world, you know, people still need to put their kids through school and will sacrifice to put their kids through school. So it's very important. What's it like running a business with your family?
I think it has really been a blessing in terms of like the productivity, in terms of her giving me like the trust and confidence to kind of lead and make those kind of like difficult decisions for the business. I'd say she's very supportive and we both support each other. So I'd say it has been a blessing. My sister trusts me and I trust her. We're both actually very good at our job. I will say that for sure. We're both very good tutors. We lead our team and we actually really love what we do. And I think that's the most important thing. And it's a mutual respect that we have for each other because of how much we enjoy what we do.
And you're both in the process of kind of scaling that business up now. As demand grows, you're bringing other tutors on board, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we are definitely scaling, actually, not as rapidly as some other companies are, but we are looking for more staff, you know, somebody to kind of, other people to kind of help us out, deal with all of the referrals that we get and kind of, you know, spread us more and our teachings and techniques that we have.
And at the same time, you've kind of you've cut yourselves a space in the tutoring world, right? Like, it's not a new business, it's not a new industry, and it's quite a busy, quite a competitive landscape, I'd say, in terms of what's out there already. So how do you guys differentiate yourselves from some of the bigger businesses that you've mentioned?
I think it is really competitive, but I also think the market is huge. The market is so huge that right now we've niched down in terms of the customers that we take. We've to the point niched down to just British expats. So I think in terms of, you know, what a business should do is just niche down in terms of customers and focus on what your ideal customer looks like. In terms of how we differentiate ourselves, I'd say we're both just very experienced for our age. As soon as we finished our GCSE exams, which we both absolutely smashed, we started tutoring. So we worked with students in probably not so great tutoring companies or tutoring businesses to some really great tutoring businesses. So our experience for our age definitely speaks for itself. I'd also say that we have quite good personalities. We really bounce off with the students that we work with, and we actually bounce off quite well with the parents that we work with. And the thing is, the parents recognize, when their kids look up to somebody in a positive way, as opposed to some random TikTok star or whoever it is. Having somebody that your kid looks up to, that's firstly a real person, it speaks a lot. So I'd say that's definitely how we differentiate ourselves, is us two and our teaching styles and abilities.
It's an interesting angle there. Do you find that found primarily by parents, or are you found more by the children who are looking for tutoring themselves, who want to have a tutor and they come across you? What's chicken or the egg?
I'd say it's the parents. I'd say the chicken. The chicken. The parents recognize and see when their kids progress. It takes a few months. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of concentration. But when the parents start getting these messages from their teachers or go to the parents' evening and they see that their kid is making changes at school, the parents absolutely recognize that. And so, parents are very proactive as well. They have their own circles. And so they'll very much speak about their kids. I mean, I'm sure you speak about your son when you're out with other families. And, it's a big thing what parents do. They speak about their kids and how they're kind of getting the best for them. So parents speak to other parents, and very quickly, other parents recognize, oh, I want to get a bit of that. I want that for my kid. And so that's kind of, the way we go about it. I'd say a lot of it is word of mouth. And we're really happy with that in terms of the scaling process for us. I don't think we intend to scale to hundreds and hundreds of students. I'd say that's definitely something a lot of companies, new ones as well, especially young entrepreneurs, they focus too much on scaling and bringing on as much students as possible instead of focusing on just a handful of students, a handful of parents, and figuring out, what is their ideal customer in terms of their personality, and just kind of building it up from there, as opposed to rushing to find tutors to cover hours and then those hours not being covered. And it just becomes very chaotic very quickly.
I think it's a fair comment. And one of my next questions was going to be, what mistakes do you see other guys in your space doing? So that leads in quite nicely. I guess it speaks to finding people that you can trust and who align with you properly, as opposed to just, the traditional call center approach, for example, putting bums on seats. It's very much about finding people who can be credible and can help provide that. I guess it boils down to customer experience, right? Like, whether the customer is a child or whether they're an adult, it's that same. You want them to come away and have a smile on their face. You want them to smile either directly from the interactions they've had with you or the results that they're getting because of their interaction with you. I'd imagine it feels good at the end of it when you go to bed on a night that you've had that impact on so many young people.
Yeah, I mean, I live in East Asia, so I'm plus 7, 8 hours sometimes ahead of the UK. And so sometimes I'll finish my lessons at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. And I like doing that. I'm really happy to do that because I really love the work that I do. And, I get to sleep quite well. I'm not grouchy in the morning. I'm like, oh, I overslept or whatever it might have been. So certainly it's a very rewarding job. And I'm very fortunate to be able to work on this full time, I'd say.
Looking back now to when you were a kid, do you think that you could tell that you'd end up doing what you're doing now? Do you think the indicators were there?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I thought life would kind of figure itself out and I'd be somehow happy working in, some sort of corporate job. I thought, there was going to be a phase in life where I figured out, okay, I need to start being like an adult, and suddenly all my emotions are going to be, geared towards having a corporate job. But one thing I will say, and my mom says this to me a lot, and I don't think I ever really understood it, but she used to sometimes tell me, like, Seyam, you're quite lucky. Like, I always see different aspects of your life. Like, you have certain luck in your life. And, maybe it sounds egotistical saying that. I absolutely don't mean it to. But I think it is just one of those things, like, it just worked out. Like, I made sure to kind of have my head screwed on firstly. That was very important. Made sure that I figured out how to take care of myself, the basic stuff, being able to present myself correctly to the world, speaking confidently to the world, backing myself to people that are not, giving me the respect that I feel like I deserve. those definitely carried me to where I am right now, I would say.
I love it. And it sounds like a fantastic journey, which you're still only, let's be honest, still only just getting started on. So absolutely wish you all the luck for the future as well. What's coming up in 2025 for you guys?
Yeah, in terms of 2025, so probably my next country, actually. So right now, Faiza and I, we're both expats living together in Taiwan. It was kind of her first leaving the nest situation, I would say. She studied at home in London, so she didn't have to live out the same way I did. So for her, I encouraged her to, leave the UK, explore the world. I know my mom's upset that her only daughter left London and the UK, but it really has helped in terms of her growth, in terms of my growth. Absolutely. So in terms of what's next, definitely growing and continuing to grow and build our systems. A more online and social media presence, I would say, to kind of just teach new tutors the best way to kind of go about their tutoring lessons and kind of share my hindsight. I've got plenty of experience. Share my hindsight with new tutors so that they can avoid the same mistakes that I made, but also know when to recognize those mistakes. Probably, I'd say Dan. Probably living in my next country, which is probably going to be South Korea or maybe Japan. I haven't decided yet, but in a few months' time, I'll let you know.
Well, when this goes out, this episode was recorded just after the US tariffs announcement back in April. So anybody who's watching this will understand some of the ideas and thoughts that must be going through Seyam's head. You've got a lot of figuring out to do over the coming months.
Yeah, lots of figuring out, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like an extremely exciting journey, Seyam. If people are listening and maybe they know some expats who might be interested to find out more, or they know their parents, like, how can they contact you? Where can they find out more?
Yeah, find me through LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post quite regularly. I share lots of experiences with tutoring. I think LinkedIn is a very grounded app. I think that's the word I'd describe it. It's very grounded. I'm not a huge fan of some of the other apps like Instagram and Facebook, but LinkedIn is very grounded. You can read my experience, have a look at all of the testimonials, and just kind of hear my thoughts and maybe rantings as well. Maybe sometimes they're rants. But you can see that there through LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Well, I'll absolutely make sure your LinkedIn link is in there along with your email in the show notes. Thank you very much for being a fantastic guest and sharing your journey with us, Seyam. It's been a privilege. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Paul.
And thank you, everyone at home, for watching or listening along. I no doubt that you've enjoyed today's episode. We'll be back next week with another fascinating story from somebody else. And I will see you in the feed. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. Contact details are in the show notes, and I'd love to hear from you. Your host today was me, Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Here at Javelin, we specialise in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. We describe it as getting ideas out of your head into video and out to your socials. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximise your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. Our podcast is only possible with your continued support.